Peace and love, brothers and sisters. It is I, DeonBelmont, from the illustrious noble house of Belmont. Today is March 11th, 2976 of the Berber calendar, which is equivalent to your 2026 Gregorian calendar. And like I say all the time here, it is a beautiful time to be alive. So I decided to do today's, this live a little different, because yesterday was the Sabbath, which was the day of rest. And I feel, now I need to kind of start having a little bit more story time, start telling you a little bit about how my days and, things are transpiring and try to utilize a little astrology. Well, I'm not going to say a little, enough astrology in regards to, show you how they coincide with influencing our life. And I also want to go ahead and show you like some synchronicities that took place in regard to how my day went. So I want to kind of, like I said, just be a little bit more in the flow. Just kind of let things go. Less scripted, more in the moment. And with that, I'm going to try to take my time. With my words, I don't want to ramble. I want to kind of be able to get to the point, but also too, us to have a little fun, especially for those of you who just now get an opportunity, to check out the channel and to see what we come to, talk about, especially for the heirs. And I know one thing a lot of us are having issues with is connecting with like-minded individuals. And one thing about the spirit will find those who are on the same frequency as you are and bring them amongst you. So therefore, you guys can start building together. And if you're on the same page, you're going through the same lessons, you're communicating, healthy with each other, then you will see a lot of growth where you both will be able to enjoy the results of. If not, you will notice friction, and with that friction, it's going to cause divide, and the divide, in essence, is separation. So that's why, we want to make sure that we are now allowing ourselves to speak up, allow your voice to be heard, because you never know who's actually on the same vibration as you until you actually open up your mouth and let your words be heard. So, the time, I don't want to keep you too long because I know everyone's time is precious. But we're going to have a good time with this lesson, or excuse me, with this story. So this actually happened yesterday, which was March 10th. For those who are going to be listening to this in the future, this was March 10th what happened. And for those of you who've been paying attention to, what's going astrologically, we're underneath the Mercury retrograde. So the Mercury retrograde has been going on for at least, I want to say about a week and some change. I could be wrong, but I know at least it has been going on for about a week. And we all know that when it comes down to a Mercury retrograde, that's the time that we, supposed to slow down, take our time, double check, important documents. Don't sign anything that's actually important at the moment if you can prevent it. Make sure you are, you're following the deadlines that you're supposed to be following, and be open for delays, because that's necessarily is going to happen when it comes down to a Mercury retrograde. Delays will happen. In my story, I'm going to explain how those delays happen, how those setbacks happen. Also, when it deals with signing important documents, your internet, for instance, could be having problems. You can have issues with trying to view things online on which we're doing right now on YouTube streams, podcasts, anything when it comes down to a form of communication, talking to others, trying to get your thoughts across easily in a form that's um, understandable to whoever you're trying to talk to. Even like how I'm trying to speak right now, and then today, as we can see, one of the first times I've actually have had a live where we're just going to be telling stories and doing a little bit of um, intuitive work together. So that way we're not just dealing with the structure of things, but allowing our spirit to flow in a moment. So hiccups is going to happen. You're going to make mistakes, like I said. You just have to be willing to roll with the punches. So with that being said, let's go ahead and tell you a little bit about the story. So the story, like I said, took place yesterday, or the situation happened yesterday. And what was going on was I had to renew, which once again I already know that I'm supposed to not be doing important things during Mercury retrograde, but they happen. You got to do it when you got to do it. So what ended up happening was I ended up forgetting, one of the most important documents that I needed at the time, which was my birth certificate. I need to take it to the DMV so I can go ahead and renew my license. And what ended up happening was when I contacted my Uber, because I didn't feel like driving, I went ahead and contacted Uber to come and get me. Everything was going smoothly. Now I'm feeling good, at the moment. I'm at the house. The weather, which I should have knew was going to let me know there was going to probably be some delays, but it wasn't even a delay because of the weather. So it was raining. Clearly, not one of my favorite times to go out when it's raining. I like to be indoors. Gray, we know, literally brings on, low energy. You don't really want to do much. So I'm like, but I got to get this done so that way I can enjoy the rest of my week. All right, cool. Everything's all set. I'm dressed. Next thing you know, my Uber gets here, and it got here pretty early. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be able to beat time with the traffic and be able to beat the line, because I was told to get there earlier, the better, which we all know. Whenever you're doing something important, the earlier the better. So once I get there, I end up getting into the to check in. Went ahead and did the check-in requirements that they need me to go ahead and do. Finally got my number called. I pulled on or walked up to the clerk and asked me what I came there for. And I'm thinking in my head, like, say, yeah, man, I'm up in the line. I ain't got all of these extra people behind me. I can get out of here. I can go on with my day. Everything's moving cool. Not even paying attention that it was a Mercury retrograde when I was already talking about it, like literally just a day or two prior to one of my friends. He said, like, oh yeah, I can go ahead and help you with that. I start pulling out the documents that they said that I needed. But unfortunately, the most important one, he said, like, oh yeah, do you have your birth certificate? I'm like, oh, jeez, I can't believe I left my birth certificate, because I didn't think about it. And my friend was telling me earlier when I was on the phone, like, don't forget your birth certificate. So, I end up turning back and, looking at my bag like, come on, hopefully I just, randomly put it in there, because sometimes, you can just be doing things and not even paying attention to what you're doing. And so I thought I probably would have just put it in my bag, because I didn't want to have to go back. I had to contact Uber, pay more money for that, then got to pay more money to come back, and then pay more money to leave again. I'm like, oh man, I hope this is not the case. So, after pretty much, accepting that I didn't have what was needed, I'm like, all right, well, maybe if I just do this early enough, I can go ahead and get myself back here before the line, gets heavy. Now, mind you, it takes about 20 minutes just for me to get back to where I'm going, and that's not even including, for me to get the Uber to come back. So I'm waiting, and about maybe 15 minutes before they get there. Now I gotta take another 20 minutes to get to the house. Good thing I know exactly where my birth certificate was at. So I went ahead and we going through traffic. I'm just looking out, you know, seeing what's going on, because I want to make sure that I'm not missing out on anything. I could probably potentially seeing something that I may want to do one time I get done handling my business. And then me and the young brother who was my Uber driver, we got into having a conversation, and next thing you know, he told me like he was interested in jurisprudence, and that had like threw me that ultimately opened me up to want to talk more because I love talking about law and things of that nature. But I want to allow him to talk. I want to give him that respect. So he just kind of telling me about some of the stuff that he learned, and all of this is in a time frame of me having to try to get to back to the house to go get my birth certificate. So he kind of let me know all that he had learned in the law. Let me know about his situation. He had just got here, maybe about 4 or 5 years before I got here, in the territory in Arizona right now, and he kind of let me know like everything that he learned like either on his own, and then he started doing his own classes and his brother. So that was pretty interesting. That allowed me to see that there's other individuals out here who have learned to come together in a congregation fashion and teach civics in a way that wasn't from one school of thought that I'm used to. I was able to learn from his school of thought that I had never had heard of before. I'm not going to say it on the live, but it was pretty interesting. And he's a pretty cool brother. Kept himself well up and everything like that. And we exchanged contact information, and said I had to, if I wanted to learn more, all the stuff he's talking about, which I heard most of it before. It was all free information, so I'm like, yeah, I'll probably go ahead and get a chance to listen to him, and because I'm always interested to other people's information they learn. And by the time he finished up telling me about the school he's doing, like I made it to the house. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm feeling cool. Got a chance to powwow with a new individual or a new network lead, contact, or whatever, how we want to call it. All in that process. And then he also said like, hey, I can go ahead and take you back. So I ain't have to pay Uber again. I can just go ahead and just pay him. I'm like, okay, cool. Because I like to go straight to the, instead of the middleman, I like to just go ahead and pay straight up. Went ahead and did that. He said, but he had to go get gas. Now, I'm always leery when folks say they got to go get gas because then they probably don't come back. All right, but it's cool because if he didn't, I was still just going to pull up Uber. So I went ahead, ran in the house. I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and find my birth certificate. I found it. Boom. I'm looking at what time it was, because I'm trying to get everything done way before noon. Like the goal is not to be stuck in traffic and long lines because of, I'm getting somewhere late and it's noon. So it's pretty early and pretty good time. All right. So, once again, we all understanding that it's a Mercury retrograde. So next thing you know, by the time the brother gets there, by the time he gets here from the gas station, it only really took him about 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, cool, man. Like I said, that's what's up. I had everything inside my bag. I was ready to go. Now he's inside the. Now we in the lanes. We end up getting turned around. He ended up going the wrong way because what? Because we were talking. So so as you can see, because of communication and our situation, end up having him going the wrong way when it comes down to me getting to the DMV. So I'm like, oh shoot, he wasn't even paying attention. So we ended up laughing it off. I'm like, all right, cool. He went ahead and turned around. So he was already probably like 5 minutes out of the way. So we had to like eat up that time. I'm like, I said, dang man, I don't want to be stuck in traffic, man, behind this long line. So I'm trying to slow down, trying to relax. not even, and this is another thing I'm going to tell you too. So because of, I don't want to go too far into the story until we actually understand why I'm also telling you this story. So I'm telling you this because of, based off of my, um, based off of what has been happening to me, my experience with astrology, as well with the Sabbath and understanding the true Sabbath day. And the reason why they say, rest and, take your time, things like that, and how the stars will be signs in the sky, and all these things are for us to stay in alignment. So yesterday was the Sabbath. For those of you who don't know, we calculate the Sabbath based off of the lunisolar calendar. Um, every 7 days after the new moon, every 7 days after the new moon sets the tone for the Sabbath for that 4 week cycle. So, for instance, before I get too far off, so I can go and get back to the story, the Sabbath landed on yesterday, which was Tuesday the 10th, because the new moon had failed on Tuesday, February 17th. So that means that the next 4 weeks from the 17th, which was the 24th, the 3rd, also going to be the 10th, which was the 10th yesterday, and the 17th of next week is the days of the Sabbath. And then it's going to change after the 19th because of the new moon is going to be falling on Thursday, the 19th. All right, so that's how you calculate the Sabbath. All right, now why that's important for this, for my story time, I'm telling you, all of this, is because the day it was gray and it was raining. So Sabbath, it's another, like I said, when it's gray, raining, these all are signs to slow down, rest. Because the Sabbath is rest day. We're supposed to be resting anyway. We're not supposed to be doing any type of business. So this is me not, because I wasn't focused, wasn't paying attention to what I'm supposed to be doing. In this case, I'm supposed to be at home, just chilling, relaxing, doing a little communion work with, other brothers and sisters, keep it simple, have a good time with the family, doing prayer work, palils, however you want to explain it. I don't supposed to be doing anything that's technically work, and going out to take care of even governmental action or governmental needs or errands is constitutes as work. And I know this. So let's go ahead and jump back into the story. All right, so after we did the U-turn, after been 5 minutes out of the way, and drove, able to catch it back up. All right, so I'm like, cool, nothing too crazy, because now I'm remind you, I'm still trying to get there before noon because I know this line gonna be crazy. So we finally, end up getting stopped, red light, at the last street that we need to get to the DMV. End up stopping this red light. His car ended up having a little issues. I'm like, oh man, come on. And he said it wasn't because it needed gas, because he just put gas in there. He was having some electrical problems that he said that he wasn't knowing why he was having. Like I said, this just happened. Now we know sometimes rain can cause problems with the car's electrical issues, and he started having some right at the last moment, but he was able to get the system to start doing what it needed to do when we were sitting there at the red light, and that took about like another 15 minutes. So mind you, like, this is all delays and setbacks that's happening on this, on my journey yesterday, which was Sabbath day, the day of rest, and the Mercury retrograde. So all just is all lined up to, give me an experience. Finally, so this is not like, it's not even noon yet. It's about like 11:15 by the time we was able to get the car back started. And and that's why I'm glad, like, next time I'm probably get another Uber. I'm not gonna, do stuff like that. I'm just gonna get the Uber. End up getting me to the DMV. Man, I pull up to the DMV. This line was long. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. It wasn't as long as out of the door, because I've been in situations when it's outside the door, and that's actually today why I couldn't go today. But I'm talk about that soon. So I'm like, oh man, I gotta stand in this line. So I'm like, all right, I'll just stand in this line. It's moving at a pretty decent pace. Now, at times, especially me, I don't like, being in lines, especially for a long period of time. Anxiety start kicking in. I'm like, I start feeling like a kid. I gotta move. I'm like, I can't do this. But I'm like, I'm holding my composure. Thing is cool. I'm like, cause I need this. Cause if I don't get it in time, then I got to start the whole process all over, and I ain't trying to do none of that. Three people in front of me. I'm starting to hear them stay after already been in the line, because I had to wait almost about like 40 minutes standing in this line. So while three people in front of me, I'm starting to hear like a little commotion in the back with the clerks now. I'm saying something about the system. And I'm like, you better not be telling me what I think y'all about to say. Now, everything is already going in my mind like, hey, it's Mercury, it's Mercury retrograde. You already know whatever potentially can happen will happen. That's like Murphy's Law. Whatever can go bad will go bad. And so we're dealing with electronics, communication, and then at the DMV, which has to deal with Mercury anyway because it's dealing with commerce. So everything was adding up for this possibly was going to cause some type of setback. But I'm like, I'm trying to stay optimistic. So, I'm like, all right, they just saying little things right now. They ain't for sure. After the first of those three people, end up getting to their aisle, she ended up calling me. I'm like, okay, cool. Pull on up there. I'm happy. I'm excited because I had my birth certificate. I had all the documents that I needed. She started, requesting it from me. I'm giving it to her so that way she can start creating a profile. I'm like, all right, cool. Everything seemed to be going cool. She got my information in there. She did I did the reading test. I did all that jazz. Got that squared away. Finally, after I signed all my, and like I told y'all, because remember, signing documents and all this and that, expect you're probably going to have some problems. Going to probably be delays. Make sure you read everything. So she told me the first time, read everything. I read everything. I already saw errors. And I gave it back to her like, oh, you messed this up. She said, hey, that's why we always tell y'all to read it. So she gave it back to me. Reread it. Everything looked good. Went ahead and put my John Hancock on there. Gave it back to her. Next thing you know, as she's putting everything in, everything went cool. Soon as she tried to hit enter, so that way I can go to the next process, so that way I can, have my license. The system freaking went down. Oh my God, man, you gotta understand like how mad I was, but in a way I'm just laughing inside because I knew that this was gonna happen. Some kept telling me this was gonna happen. So this is that intuition that you gotta start reading. You gotta start understanding that it's there for you to know that it's trying to tell you something. So my intuition was already telling me, hey, something's gonna go down. I just didn't know what, but I knew it had to have to deal with my situation I was dealing with at that moment. So the systems went down. I'm flabbergasted. She said, I got to set you up for the appointment. I'm like, please don't tell me it's going to have to be 2 days out. And it was exactly that, 2 days out, because she said on Wednesdays, they don't open until noon, and the line is outside the building. Now, today is a beautiful day, and on beautiful days, we know we love to be outdoors. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to go today. But I wanted to tell this story because I'm just trying to explain how Mercury retrogrades happen, how they work, and what can go down when you stop paying attention and listening to your law. In this case, the law, the sabbatical law, or the law of the Most High, when it comes down to the seventh day Sabbath, the day of rest. So after I end up having to make an appointment, then I had to call again for Uber, to go to take me home. So not only did I not get done what I got, I was setting my sight to get done that day, but I end up losing out on money. So not only losing out on money, I end up losing money because I spent money, I had to go back and forth. So as we can see, and then plus I was supposed to be resting anyway. So this is what I'm saying. So things happen when you're out of alignment, and it can cost you, like I said, it can cost you money, and it can cost you time, and it can cost you setbacks, which require me now to have to redo it, because now I have to spend money again to go back there, as well as still have to pay for the services that I need to get rendered. Um, so as we can see, these are the lessons that we have to take in consideration, you know, because they get more severe. They start off small, but they become more severe when you don't focus on them, especially when you know. And when it comes down to astrology, the more you know about it, the more you can feel the influence or the effects of it, because you're now aware, and you can start putting the situations that you're going down with in your daily life. You can start making more sense of them. You know, those synchronistic events that take place, you can now actually start making sense of them. You can be able to like, aha, I know now why that happened. So instead of you actually getting upset, like I was almost getting upset, you can turn it around to something positive to remind you like, oh, this is a sign for you to get back in order, get back in alignment. And this is one thing about Pisces, you know, is because we have to teach. Well, since I have the North Node, I have to teach this in a spiritual fashion, and I have to not only teach it in a spiritual fashion, but I have to teach it in a way that others can relate to it. You know, so I would love to hear other stories in regards to your Mercury retrogrades, mishaps, and then hopefully for those of you who would love to learn how to get yourself back in alignment with the true Luni Solar Sabbath calendar that was created by the Most Highs. Just go ahead and leave a comment now inside the video, inside the chat. The goal is to start trying to get us as a family on earth in more of a divine order. And scriptures told us already, you know, that the heavens were going to be for the signs of for us in regards to, you know, knowing what time it was, or were the seasons, when to plant, when to harvest. Actually, when it comes down to how we are affected in regards to the heavenly bodies above. So everything here on earth is affected by what the Creator created above. And the more you get into alignment and to know how they operate from their archetype, the easier it is for us to be able to, you know, maneuver around these unexpected but expected mishaps. So with that being said, I didn't want to keep this live long. You know, I just want to kind of, you know, tell you a little bit about that. Hopefully, many of you who are, you know, stepping into the realm of astrology, you have done your natal chart. For you to be able to do your natal chart, you need to have your true time of birth. You can get that from your birth certificate, or hopefully you can get it from one of your loved ones, hopefully your mother or father. And that you should be able to plug in that information on an online natal chart engine. I like to use AstroDinst, which is ASTRODIENST.com. Very easy to use, or I highly recommend you to look out for a reputable astrologer who does natal readings. Now, I do natal readings as well, but I don't have the time to really actually do them at the moment because I'm trying to get this channel up and going. I'm trying to get things a little bit more curated, so therefore I don't have the audience, you know, waiting for new content from me. So I'm trying to come from many different angles, especially when it comes down to teaching, you know, astrology, the history as well. When I start going into the Bible, and more of the mythical understanding, when we start getting into it from the Anglo-Saxon, the Irish, as well as the Scottish standpoint, because that's when it's going to get very entertaining and not entertaining in a way that's going to seem like a spectacle, but in a way that's going to really open up many people's eyes to want to, rekindle the ancient ways of how our forebears, truly practiced Christianity and where it came from. So that's something for a future lesson or a future video. But like I said, today this is more so just a story time type of ordeal, and hopefully I'll be able to get more of a set schedule so that way I can actually do this um, more consistently. And like I also always ask for those of you who want to contribute to the channel, because I still have to live a regular life like everyone else. I have to provide for what's going on out there. But if I want to actually keep this channel moving, as we'll be able to come up with new content, I need some support. And there's a lot that's going to be going down within the next few months that I've been wanting to do. And I had to wait till I got on this side of the country for me to be able to do it, because everything is not meant to be done everywhere or just any old place. The way the planet is set up, you have to be at certain locations for certain things to happen for you. So, as me being a messenger, I needed to be somewhere where it's easy for me to be able to communicate, where I can get the message out without having to deal with the issues when it comes down to the weather, where I can actually be able to see the stars on a daily basis. And for me, I need a lot of sun. The more sun, the better. And there's not too many places in the country, especially in the U.S., that has the amount of sun that I need. So I had to specifically go to this place and actually live. And I utilized astrocartography to help me figure out where I needed to go. So that's another beautiful thing about once you start, getting into astrology, is you start getting the ability to know where you need to be. You need to travel for you to be able to utilize certain energy from the stars or the planets above, and you will no longer see yourself as a victim. The goal is not to be seen as a victim out here in this simulation or in this game. You're meant to win. It was designed for you to win. You're just in the stage of ignorance. And I'm not saying that in a condescending way. I'm just saying that is that you just don't know. Now, for those who do know and have not picked up the controller, and the controller I'm saying is your life, yourself. You are the controller. You have to move your body, go to these places. I know remote activation or remote viewing, all this is possible. You can do it, but nothing beats the physical body itself going there. Once, like I said, seeing is believing. So you actually going to these places, like I said, beats just sitting at home, trying to zen your way to these locations. So you have to see yourself as a character within the game, become the main player, so to speak. But you're not just the main player. Everyone out here is technically a main player, but we're all players together. We're all players who have to utilize this world, as the playground for we to be able to utilize all that this body gave us. All that this body has the ability to do, and to be able to learn. And if you don't go out and learn and upgrade yourself like how you do in an RPG game or role playing game, then you're going to be stunted. You're only going to go as far as you allow yourself or your character to develop. So, like I said, that my story hopefully was allowing you to get a glimpse into what happens or what can happen when you no longer following or listening to when you're not listening to the rules of the game. And the rules of the game, I'm saying, is how retrogrades affect us from the sun. Excuse me, not the sun, because the sun don't go retrograde. how retrogrades affect us, from Mercury retrogrades to Saturn retrogrades to Jupiter, which Jupiter just went direct yesterday, so or today, which they want to say. So this is a good sign, and he went direct in Cancer, and Cancer, rules the fourth house. So start expecting a lot of good things start happening within that domain, and wherever Cancer is in your house, so hopefully you start seeing good fortunes, develop within that area of your life. So, like I said, it's time to start shifting our mindset from, a mindset of not knowing to a mindset of knowing, especially when it comes down to wanting to perfect who you are in this reality or this matrix. The more you know, the better you can play this game. The less you know, the less you can do. And that's just the name, that's just the way it is. And that's why we say do your genealogy. This is not what the live is about, but I'm going to tell you to do your genealogy, because your predecessors from the past, they all knew this. This wasn't something that was just, hogwash or make believe. They actually understood that this is how our reality operated, and it is our obligation and duties as heirs to remind you, brothers and sisters, the way of taking control of your life, and being able to truly play this game the way that it was designed for you to be able to play it. So that being said, stay tuned for the next live that's going to go ahead and hopefully be done here on a more of a scheduled time frame. Right now, I'm actually still setting things up, so this is mostly just to kind of, get things started and understand that it's not going to be perfect, because Pisces is not about perfection. Pisces is about, feeling it and doing it from how you feel at that moment, because the more you try to think your way to do it, the more it's going to cause confusion and the less chances of it actually happening the way you want it happening. So, hopefully for those of you who listen to this in the future, you do go ahead and go down the archives of videos that I have done, and you can kind of get an understanding of who I am, the nature of the videos that I'm doing, and why I'm trying to, let me remove that word because we don't try here, and why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, because the goal is to get the world in the understanding of we not only need each other, but how we think affects one another. And if we're thinking completely different from one another, it's going to cause division and it's going to cause divide. So the best way for us to fix our modern problems, our modern issues, is to understand what our predecessors all understood together all over the world, without having to have multiple different perspectives or narratives to explain the same thing. All right? And that's what this channel is about, but we're going to be explaining everything as who we are today as English people. So I am an Englishman. I am putting forward the work that my predecessors have left and ordained for me to do this lifetime via blood, that many of you also have within you to also do, if you choose to do so. And it's a choice. And like they say, many are called, few are chosen. So if you haven't felt the need to, be underneath this type of school of thought, this intellectual movement, and then by all means continue keep doing what you're doing. But those who feel like this is the way, this is something that you have been feeling in your blood for quite some time, you just never been able to have it explained to you in a way that needs to be explained, you have found the path. This is the path. This path will lead you back to home. Home is where the heart is, and the heart is where you and I and the mother and the father all dwell. So once again, I love you. I am your humble, noble brother, DeonBelmont from the illustrious noble house of Belmont. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel. And once again, I'll see you on the flip side. Peace.